Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to explain how to get an origami square. As you know, when you buy origami paper, it comes in a complete square form, and if you're like me, your town doesn't have a paper store and you might not have access to origami paper. But what I like to do is I take ordinary pieces of paper and just make the squares from that. And you do that by just taking a piece of paper. This is just a regular old printed out flyer from work that was just scraps, and you take it, and along this point you take the opposite point and fold it so that this edge meets this edge. So you fold that up like so, and you complete the valley fold along the line. And until you get used to it, you're going to have to hold it up. If you can hold it up in front of a light, you can see that it's completely to the edge. So it's a nice smooth line, and you just flatten that out. Now you have a bit of edge here, and you take that and you just close it down like a flap. And don't be afraid to pick up your paper as you're working with the origami. For me, if I can pick it up, I can feel if the paper is right up against the edge of the flap. And then you can just flatten that out. And if you open it back up, you see you have two triangles and a completed square with a rectangle on the side. This is actually pretty useful for because a lot of origami models will have you do a diagonal along the sheet of paper anyway, so you can plan that out with whatever model you're going to create, so you already have one fold done. And to get this little edge off, you just fold it and you crease it really well. And you can crease it again, because you want to crease it a lot and make sure the creases are really tight, because you're going to end up loosening the paper along this crease, which will enable you to carefully, you see it'll be like along the crease, you can just rip it. Some people like to wet their finger and rub it along the edge, and it will let you get an easier tear. But if you've been doing it for a while, you can just squeeze it pretty good. And there you have it, a perfect square that you can use for your origami models. Now this works with any size sheet of paper. For instance, take the and I do this a lot. Once I make the square, I'll take these extra rectangles if I want to make a mini model, and you can do the same process again. This is how you actually, if you can't find the pre-cut squares, you can make mini models. It's a lot more challenging if you use these tiny squares, but it's a really great way to get good small models. So you just do your creases again and get it really tight. One more for good measure. And you rip. And there we go, another small one. And I believe this one is an even shorter piece of paper, and you can do it with this as well. You just take it, do your crease. You see it's right up to the edge. Crease like this. And while I'm doing that, I want to show a good way to get a flat crease. You just take any object that has a flat side, such as we'll take the house key. It's in reach, and you can just press it along that edge. As long as it's flat, it'll just push out all the paper fibers and make it nice and flat. And you see it's a very exact crease. And so we have an even smaller one. And I usually use a full-size square like this for when I'm going to do my large models, which I'll be showing in different tutorials. But usually if I know a model is going to take a lot of paper, I'll use one of these about middle size, I guess you could say, squares. Now to get a bunch of these, you can take, this is some other size paper, you can take your large sheet, and if you do it this way with a normal sheet of paper, you'll get about 3 of these, I believe, and one, and you'll have a little bit of extra on the end. So every normal sheet of paper will give you a big square, a rectangle, and that rectangle will always make 3 squares. But if you fold your paper like this, if you want to just use the smaller squares, you can just take it and you want to turn it to the side and make a valley fold right down the center, and you see that will turn it in half. And I believe if you do it this way, you will get 2 squares from each half of this. Will get you 2 squares about that large. But if you fold it again, you just take one side and fold it right up to the line. Now notice I'm turning my paper because I'm right-handed, and I always fold from the right, which is strange, but you just fold that up to the center, and you fold this edge up to the center. And now when you open it, you'll have 4 rectangles. Now if you make a square from each one of these, you can just fold it again and tear out your rectangles like before. These will be a bit thinner than the normal sized rectangles, but you'll get 5 squares from each rectangle, so one sheet of paper could become a 20 of these squares. Now that when you're working with a model that says you might need 30 sheets of paper or 60 sheets of paper, and I've done some with 90 and some with 120 plus sheets of paper. Doing it this way will cut down on a lot of the cost and a lot of the paper that you have to go through. So you could get all the paper, all the squares that you need for one of those modules from like 3 or 4 sheets of paper. And I'll be referring to this throughout my tutorials, as you'll see on some of my other guides that I'll be posting up soon. I don't like to use origami paper unless it's paper that someone gives to me to make a specific model, which I might be doing for Christmas, but because you can save a tree this way. And even though you do use scrap paper, you can still make very pretty models. For instance, in my box here, you see these two, well, these three actually. Even though you use just say scrap paper that's been used before you printed on it, you can still turn it into a beautiful piece of origami. For instance, this is just a plain sheet of white paper that was made from, I believe, one of these other pieces of paper that I have. It's the hydrangea model. I forgot who is the creator of this model, but I know I followed Sarah Adams' model on YouTube, which is she's a very, very talented demonstrator, and I will link this video back to her her demonstration. And you can see the back side, I folded the paper so that the back side wouldn't show with all the lines and the type, but and did my own little flair to it. But it's a very pretty model, and you really can't tell at a glance that it wasn't made from origami paper. And also you can create more complex models. For instance, this is a cookie cutter origami ball that I created just the other day from yellow carbon copy paper, some purple flyer, and some blue sheets of paper that we had left over. And everybody likes this model. I think it was my first try, but it looks pretty well for the quality of the paper. That is one thing you're going to have to look out for, because as you'll see with this is the Origami Flex Ball, which I'll also link to the tutorial that I used to create this. And for this I actually used the mini squares, which which I wouldn't recommend unless you've been doing origami for a very long time. No, I need to redo that. For this is the Origami Flex Ball. For this model, I actually used the rectangle method, and it still took I think one sheet of paper from each, maybe two. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but if you look closely, the model is a solid model, but since the paper wasn't that sturdy that I selected, it once you flex it down and pop it back up, you can see that it's wrinkled in some places. And But it was my first try, and I'm sure once I make another flex ball it would be a little more sturdy, since I didn't know what I was doing. But I mean, it's still an impressive model, especially for the quality of the paper. I'm surprised at how flexible and sturdy that it actually is. And so just be warned that some of these models that you see are going to be very difficult to do with just normal sheets of paper. If you're lucky, you might come across paper. For instance, this piece got teared, but it's got a smooth colored side, but it does have some print on it, and the back side is white like normal origami paper, and it's nice and thick. And I save this paper for more of when I do a special modular origami model. And you can still turn it into a square, but I'll go into that in detail with other tutorials. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Don't forget that the rectangle can be used to make any square of any size, depending on the piece of paper. And please leave a comment if you'd like to know more. And this will be the starter video that I recommend everyone watch before I do one of my tutorials. And I hope you liked it, and I hope it's answered the question of how to get that square to start doing basic origami.